I'm Lise Kuecker, a longtime studio owner turned founder here at Studio Grow. Just a few years ago, I was building my studios the hard way. So I didn't have the team, the budget, or most importantly, the time. Now, if you speed up to today, I sold my wildly profitable studios in the mid 7 figures while serving my community in ways I could have only dreamed. Now I work with thousands of boutique fitness studio owners in over 40 countries, and I am so blessed to share some of the best tested strategies for our industry every single week. I created this podcast so you'd always have clear, actionable processes, tried and tested advice, and just some good old-fashioned inspiration. So you can take steps to grow your studio and turn it into a powerhouse empire just like I did. If you're a studio owner who's ready to impact your community and see major growth in the process, or you're prepping to become one, then you're in the right place. So let's kick this off, shall we?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Business of Boutique Fitness. I'm Lise Kuecker, and I'm joined by Mike Goscinski. Now, Mike is the Chief of Staff at the Health and Fitness Association. Literally, if you see his work externally, think anything that's happening for advocacy work and beyond, it really falls under Mike. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know him and watch his work in action. What you may not realize if you're sitting in a studio somewhere randomly inside of the United States is that there is a team of humans working for impactful work on your behalf all the time in almost every state and across the U.S. from the federal government's perspective. It all happens under the Health and Fitness Association. And we've been blessed to be a part of supporting their works, engaging with them, and ensuring that, quite frankly, our industry is protected, because that's really what you've done. So, Mike, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to spread the message of what we're doing in Washington, D.C. and state capitals across the country.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit. The Health and Fitness Association was formerly known as IHRSA. Some people know this in boutique fitness, but for a lot of people, this is news that we have an incredible association doing insane advocacy work. And especially in light of the pandemic, sitting 6 short years, we're filming this almost to the day that the world shut down 6 years ago. It's incredible to realize what you guys have done. So can you just give us a rough history of what's happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's so funny that it's been 6 years. I can't believe it. I just celebrated my 4th year anniversary, here with HFA. And the industry, we tend to forget that the health and fitness industry as a whole is really only 65 years old and started here, on the West Coast and grew into a massive behemoth of an industry, boutiques sparking, a real change in the direction of how people get physically active. And so when the pandemic hit 6 years ago, it shined a really bright light on what this industry was missing. Yeah. And that was having advocacy at the federal level. IHRSA, to their credit, was incredible at working at the state level and blocking and tackling bills to make sure that the fitness industry never saw the challenges that were coming out of state legislatures. Yeah. But at the federal level, when the win was really needed, they did not have the presence there. So at that time, IHRSA made the decision to make the transition. They hired my boss, our CEO, Liz Clark.
The amazing Liz Clark.
And I have known Liz for about 16 years. We lobbied together in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the health and fitness, the food and beverage industry. So I worked for the wholesale baking industry, Big Bread, and she worked for the National Confectioners, which is the candy industry.
Candy industry,
so we both like to make the joke that we went from calories in to calories out in our careers. But so here, when the pandemic hit, she came on board. She called me up and said, hey, we need to build an advocacy program for this industry that really, truly deserves it. And that's what we've been doing. It's incredible, the accomplishments that we've been able to do over the past 6 years. We've rebranded because, frankly speaking, around Washington, D.C., the first thing when I say, hi, I'm Mike Goscinski with IHRSA, they say, what is that? And so being able to go in and say, I'm with the Health and Fitness Association, they know right up front who we are. Yeah. And we've been able to make real strides in credibility and putting this industry on the map in front of lawmakers.
I mean, let's take a pause on this and touch on something you just said, which is putting this industry on the map. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you know anything about lobbying, you know that the automotive industry, the oil and gas industry, the defense contracting industry, the candy, the food and beverage industries, these all have had long-standing presences in Washington, D.C. to ensure that their industries were served and protected. And I think that's a critical word there is protected on this, that you ensure that, yes, we know times are going to change. We know bills are going to come to Congress and things like, but we're going to make sure we're doing what we can to ensure that our industry is stabilized throughout all of that change. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're in business, you're in politics. Yeah. Somebody said that last night. I think it's such a true statement on where this is. And for all of us who might be on the smaller side of this, it's easy to forget that, or it's easy to think it's only on the local level. Now, you guys have rapidly stood up a significant team in Washington, D.C. and made a massive impact on this. So can you just take me through what the team looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's again, talking about how young we are as an industry and how young we are on the scene and when it comes to advocacy in Washington, D.C. We actually were just talking about this. We had a board meeting yesterday, and Liz mentioned, she goes, we are a 60-year industry. The association is 45 years old. But when you think about us starting in Washington, D.C., we're really only 4 to 5 years old as an association, and we're batting against special interest groups, other trade associations that are 100 and 200 years old, well established, have been working this for years. And so when we started, we've opened our office in Washington, D.C. We're 1 block away from the White House. Liz and I are up on the Hill talking with lawmakers all the time. And then we have 2 great leaders at the state level, Charles Rignanti and Cassie Losi, who are making sure that the bills that are coming out of state legislators are blocked when they need to be blocked, promoted when they need to be advanced, and doing what we can to not only protect the industry, but promote it and help it grow.
Talk to me about what happened in 2025, because I feel like you do a very good job of attacking things before they ever become an issue for studio owners, and people don't actually realize that's happening. So what were some of the big wins in 2025?
I mean, we had an incredible year in 2025. Charles, he to his credit, he is out there every day. He is actually walking the halls in state capitals, doing the shoe leather lobbying that you would hear about, right, in history books. And we chalked up nearly 60 wins across the state. Most of those are click to cancel and auto renewal policies. And I want to make it pretty, clear that we as an organization don't have the position that we're trying to block click to cancel.
Absolutely.
This industry has a reputation issue. I'm saying it. I'm sorry. It has, and
it's
it
critical
always
to
has.
know it.
And so for us, a lot of the work that we're doing is trying to advance the reputation of this industry. And by doing that, we're meeting lawmakers where they are and saying, let's work together with a business tenable solution that provides consumer protections and transparency into the cancellations and contracts. And so across the country, we've had some great wins last year. And I believe, we saved the industry roughly 160 or between 25 and 60 billion dollars last year. $1 million, excuse me. I wish it was billion, but we'll get there.
It doesn't matter. I mean, that's a massive number when you look at this. Now, let's talk click to cancel for just a hot second. I mean, I think anybody who joined a health club probably between 2000 and 2010 has experienced some of the things that you just spoke of. Difficult to cancel. No one would call you back. You're going to have to send everything in writing. And it felt like you were sending literally, reference letters along with it. I'm really serious that I need to cancel. Yes. Let's go ahead and do this. I mean, it developed a reputation that was truly difficult on this. So I'm curious on this. When it comes up to click to cancel, I realize that now this is heading back. Was blocked by
a court case in the 8th Circuit. So at the federal level, the Federal Trade Commission did a national rulemaking last year, over the last 2 years, that HFA engaged heavily in, and we actually engaged in the 8th Circuit court fight as well. And again, that contradicts the statement that I just made, that we're trying to work with policymakers, with lawmakers, and make sure that we're enhancing the industry's credibility. But in fact, the regulation and the way that it went about being developed was rushed. They didn't take a lot of industry input. And frankly speaking, they put together a click to cancel policy that wasn't business tenable. They weren't allowing for what we know how the industry operates with third-party payment transactions. And so we were put in the situation where if an individual, you have a clause in your agreement that says you need to cancel by the 15th of the month because we batch those payments for processing, and somebody cancels at 12:01 on the 16th, then you charge them for an additional month. Now you're putting yourself in non-compliance risk where you can be fined and you can be held accountable by the Federal Trade Commission. So we fought the case and we won, which is a huge win for the industry, and actually, in my opinion, a huge win in the reputational fight as well.
Absolutely.
Because of when that happened, the industry made great strides to get to where they could be in compliance, as close as they could be. And now, last week, the Federal Trade Commission opened up a new rulemaking process in the way that it should be done, known as an advance notice of proposed rulemaking that allows us to engage with them starting today before they even propose the regulation. And so we get to go in and tell them, like, look, we're ready. The industry is ready to work with you. Let's go out there and raise our arms together in victory for consumer transparency, but let's do it in a way that our operators can comply with on day one.
I think that was one of the most interesting things. I remember when I was up in D.C. on a fly-in probably 2 years ago, having that conversation with you and really you just saying, we don't have anything, like nothing has been thought of. This has been raced through. It seemed like it was being focused almost more on like apps that you would purchase on your phone and things like that. And yet they had tried to apply this to an industry that had nothing to do with it. Yeah. And that's a really hard thing. I mean, it's what we saw in the pandemic when we got lumped in with amusement parks and movie theaters. They were two distinctly different industries, very different forms of operations, and yet compliance is all the same. Now, I'm curious, one of the issues that it seems is that we tend to get lumped in with other industries. I mean, this is like a consistent thing. And whereas some industries are very clearly defined and there are boundaries around them, we have a fluid industry that can shift over to entertainment. It can shift over to memberships and billing. It can shift in between. What are y'all doing to ensure that we stand on our own?
Well, it's amazing, right? So if you think about that, again, it's about making sure that we're on the map. So first and foremost, we're out there, we're talking to folks, and we're getting the media attention. So when we did release our statement last week on FTC, we were in all of the political rags in Washington, D.C. saying the health and fitness industry makes comment on gym cancellation policy. So we're getting ourselves on the map, but it's just incredible to think about getting lumped in with groups like when we were talking about click to cancel the last time around, I would make the joke. I go, you're trying to regulate the fitness industry like you are Candy Crush. And we are not what is considered a quote unquote negative option where you get hooked in with a 3-day trial. And then before you know it, your credit card is being charged every 365 days for $150. And so getting in there and telling the story and explaining with the facts of how the industry operates, it's all education. All I do at the end of the day, I try and explain what lobbying is. It's education, and at the end of the day, it's sales, right? So I'm selling myself, I'm selling the industry, I'm selling the association by educating them on the actual operations, the great work that this industry does, the great impact that this industry has on preventive mental and physical health, and making sure that everybody understands that we aren't a hobby, we aren't leisure, we are an entertainment. But one of the biggest challenges is that we still, some folks in the industry get set up tax-wise with NAICS codes, NAICS codes in amusement and entertainment. And that comes largely out of, if everybody remembers their history of the industry, a major casino company owning the largest chain of gyms when this...
Is that really what it's
Bally's. When Bally's opened the casino, the Bally's fitness facilities.
No
so
idea.
They were batched into the company NAICS code, which was amusement and entertainment.
And this is how we got shut down, by the way, in the pandemic, to be very clear on this, because we were labeled under entertainment, non-essential. We literally were shut down. It was an automatic deal. And it became a conversation that we had because we did a significant amount of lobbying on behalf of the boutique fitness industry in Arizona, in California, in Illinois, in Wisconsin, and in New York. And we would have conversations with people over and over and over again of how does a 1,500 square foot Pilates studio, how is that the same thing as an amusement park, as Six Flags, or looking at the movie theater? It didn't make sense. And yet our coding was wrong. And as an industry, we hadn't even considered this.
And so we're trying to figure out ways to navigate how do we get the industry removed from that NAICS code. And now it's not everywhere, so it really depends on how you establish your business at the end of the day. But if for those who are currently in it, if we can make a massive batch shift for those groups, that changes everything. That changes your line of credit, that you're able to access. It changes so much about even just starting your business and getting it off the ground.
And that's every decade that you have the opportunity to make these shifts?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the other thing that we don't realize is some of the things that we're working on they take years because literally the shifts can only happen.
It is a game of inches, a brutal game of inches that I love, but that many are not prepared to understand that, everybody's looking for that signing ceremony in the Rose Garden at the White House. Those come once in a generation.
Yeah.
And that's why the work that we do on the regulatory side and the work that we do at the state level is so important, because we're protecting at the end of the day, and we're building those relationships, and we're bringing the industry in front of lawmakers and really putting them on the map.
I want to talk back on the state side of this right now, because this is we got to deal in some things in Louisiana, my home state, about a year and a half ago. An unexpected sales tax.
Yes, and thank you, because you were incredible to helping us, spark action and get in front of the right people at home.
It was, and I think that's actually like an important recognition of like every person matters in this fight.
Yeah.
You don't know who knows who. You don't know who's going to be able to make a phone call. I was at Disney World, like literally at the Mexican restaurant at Epcot with a sleeping child when I talked to Mike.
And I was...
and it was really good. And it was me. I was calling one of my cousins, like legitimately. And I think that's the important thing, is to recognize that on the state level, there are oftentimes people that are one step away from the people who are making really critical decisions. Right. And the more you're involved at this, the more you're invested in this, you may not even know. I wouldn't have even had any idea that this was being proposed in Louisiana as I was sitting on my family vacation and everything else. But you kept that going and was like, hey, I know this is happening. We've got to get ahead of this immediately. And felt like it was 3 or 4 steps ahead of this, because this was literally days after it had been proposed. It was, hey, we've already got a plan of action.
And sometimes, what the work that we do is just luck, right? But at the end of the day, we're in the business of people. It's a people business. The amount of folks that I guarantee you, lawmakers work out at gyms and fitness facilities and boutique studios all across the country, and you might not know it. But at the end of the day, some may. And if you do, we want you to let us know you have those relationships, because we can leverage them in the appropriate way. Just like you said, we're paying attention to it so that you don't have to, so you can run your business, and then make sure that we're connecting those dots and making sure that at the end of the day, we're able to fight an item like the sales tax in New Orleans. It's funny, because the luck of that week, I was chatting with you. I was in New Orleans for athletic business, and I said, you know what? I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to drive to the Capitol and go lobby this, even though I had a speaking engagement. I was supposed to be on stage, but it just worked out. And then I was like, okay, I'm in your hometown. I should give you a call and see if you happen to know anybody. And you did, and we were able to have the conversations with the right people. And that's really what it's about. when we talk about, the pandemic, which one day we'll be able to move past being able to talk about it. But I always say, I was able to get the vending machine industry, which I worked for at the time, deemed essential. It wasn't due to my great relationships. It was due to years of understanding where to be when and being on the right phone call. I remember it was 7 a.m. and we were on the phone with the Department of Homeland Security. It was the entire food and beverage industry. And they basically said, make your case. And every one of us, one by one, said, hi, I'm Mike Goscinski with the National Automatic Merchandisers Association. We represent the convenience services industry, which is unattended retail, vending machines, and mini markets. And this industry needs to be essential, because if you're closing the restaurants, you're closing the stores, you're closing everything else, how are the men and women that are in hospitals and medical facilities going to find food and beverage? Our guys need to stock those vending machines in those workrooms. And they said, okay, great. And we were on the list. One conversation, one morning at 7 a.m., I think I might have still been sitting in my bed when I was on the phone.
That is crazy. That's crazy. When you look at the state side of this, a lot going on. I realize a lot of this was click to cancel this last year and sales tax related. Were there anything that you see coming this year that we need to be staying ahead of?
Yes. And I mean, it's thanks to the incredible, people in the industry bringing to our attention things that are happening here in California. We're actually proactively pushing, if this is going to sound weird, we're proactively pushing a regulation around cold spas, because in the state of California, they're not regulated currently. And at the county level, county health commissioners are deciding to play cowboy and do and manage them however they want. So we are proactively seeking unified regulatory compliance that allows the industry to utilize a recovery model that people are loving right now. And that's, it's bringing people into facilities. So that's something we're doing. We're also proactively, we've mentioned the FIT Act. Everybody's talked about it at the national level. We're pushing it at the state level. federal legislation, as I said, is a game of inches, and sometimes you just miss the boat and it just doesn't happen. But the state legislatures meet every year and they get things done. Yeah. And so in California, in New Jersey, in West Virginia, in 3 other states, we've introduced state FIT Acts that would allow a simple, clean $1,000 tax credit that anybody can take with proof of their purchase of their fitness facility membership or their boutique studio classes.
That's fantastic. And these are the types of things that I've been up and lobbied for the FIT Act, I think 3 years in a row now. And I have to tell you, the things that I realized is these seem obvious. When we sit down with lawmakers and have this conversation on, don't you want people to be healthier? We know the costs of not being healthy. I mean, it is so much higher, and in terms of the loss of work, insurance. I mean, I can go down the list of disabilities that are going onward. And so much is preventable these days that it's a quality of life issue as well, that we're living longer. We should live well longer on where this is. That this seems like an obvious track. What has been the reaction so far as you're starting to introduce this?
It's incredible. People love the idea. They love bringing it home. I mean, and then when we can talk about this industry from the perspective of we're not a hobby, we're not leisure, we're a part of the preventive health ecosystem. The tip of the spear. Yes. And then all of a sudden you see the light bulb go off in a lawmaker's eyes and they're like, oh yeah, they think about the healthcare savings. Yeah. They think about everything on the back end that they're doing. And then, we've been in a world of rising prices and where people are feeling the pinch. And when you say, let's create a access pathway for individuals to get and stay physically healthy, then all of a sudden they're like, yes, they can think about their constituents. They think about, how that impacts their life, how it's helpful. And it really has been well received across the board. Absolutely.
I had no idea about that. I'm very, very, very excited. Now, I know we're going to be lobbying in May. Just so y'all know, every year, the Health and Fitness Association does an industry fly-in. And this is where leaders from across the industry fly in from all over the U.S. to really share their thoughts in front of Congress. It's a unified message. It's something that's incredibly powerful. It's something that I always have told people that if you're not willing to go and talk to politicians, you really can't complain about what politicians do. This is something that starts locally. I mean, we've been doing this for as long as I've had businesses, is meeting with local politicians, heading on the state level. But the impact on the federal level, as you touched on at the beginning of this, was never there. So we were part of the first fly-in.
The small, tiny engine that could, but it
was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing, and got to bring together some key figures in the boutique fitness industry to really say, what does this look like on Capitol Hill? This year, what's going to be the primary focus?
So we're super excited about this year. We're actually currently here at the HFA show, we're releasing first of its kind research on GLP-1s, where we did an economic impact study of how if governments are to pay for GLP-1s, what the impact on the healthcare system and the healthcare economy is. Yeah. But then if you couple it with physical activity, by incentivizing physical activity through reimbursement or through direct funding, right, through programming or putting money back in people's pockets so they can use it, what the impact on the healthcare economy is. And the numbers are huge. And so one of the things that when I talk about our advocacy program as a whole, and I want to stress that when I talk about advocacy program as a whole, it's the entire ecosystem that's going on within 100%. The Health and Fitness Association. It's our research team giving us the data that we're able to make educated claims and talk to folks. And then it's our communications team getting the message out there and amplifying it. And so when I'm talking about what we do for the industry, at the end of the day, when I look at it from the consumer perspective, we are trying to increase and drive access into physical activity. Yep. And so however we can do that. So we're going to be bringing that research study to Capitol Hill, talking with lawmakers and talking with regulators, because the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, there's a huge opportunity. There are 40 million Americans on traditional Medicare right now, and we've had conversations directly with Dr. Oz that he wants to find out how to give them a fitness benefit. And if we can find that out, you think about we're in the silver tsunami, as they're calling it right now. Think about that untapped market that gets to think about and go to use those funds in the way that they're comfortable at a boutique where they're comfortable in a modality that they're comfortable doing, rather than forcing them into a medical facility or 100%. Something where nobody wants to go to the hospital to work out.
No. I mean, I just had this conversation with my father-in-law who was like, that's my best option in my town. And I was like, there has to be another option. Like, well, people don't go to hospitals. Right. I want to be,
and you don't want to.
You don't want to go that. Right? Yeah, that's literally it feels instinctively wrong
Yes.
on that. I want to touch on this piece that you just said, because we were talking about it last night. When you're 65 years old or 67 years old, as Medicare is kicking in on this one, the ability to say, I want to continue Pilates. I'll use this as an example, yoga, something that is remarkable for my body, that is going to help me age well, that's going to do this. Right now, that is, I would call it a stopgap, but you're being pushed in a very different direction on this and almost saying, nope, head off this way. I think for the boutique fitness industry, this is incredible to know that this opens up, literally, we said 40 million people.
40 million. And there's another 30 that are currently on Medicare Advantage plans that have fitness facility benefits, but they're pretty narrowly scoped.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of where we're spending our time. We actually, in the board meeting that we were in yesterday, we're discussing our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And this is a huge part of it, is making sure that we're connecting those dots, because it allows Americans, and these are the conversations that I'm having, to continue with what they love doing.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't want to age onto Medicare and then all of a sudden the only way that you get to utilize the benefit is by changing the way that you're comfortable working out.
And I think you touched on the back of this. 70 million people is a significant amount of people.
Yes.
And quite frankly, they're ideal clients for an awful lot of fitness studios. I think boutiques oftentimes hear this and they're like, I'm isolated from this. I'm too small. They think of silver sneakers, which is, heading off into a gym. And that's what we picture with these types of things. That's changing, and you're changing what this can look like. And I think that that's a critical thing to recognize. One question that we get a lot, and I've been a big fan. I was a member of IHRSA before it was the HFA. We have been supporting the Health and Fitness Association for years on this, because for us, our dollars are well spent protecting our industry. Our dollars are well spent advancing our industry through being with you. I have a lot of people, though, that they associated IHRSA with big box clubs, and now they're looking at this and saying, is there a room for me? Is there a space for me in the Health and Fitness Association? By the way, my answer is 100% yes. If you want to talk on this, all you have to do is write me. I will tell you every reason you should be a part of this and why it's the best value for your money and absolutely necessary. But from your perspective, you have proven incredibly inclusive to drawing boutique fitness. And even we were just talking about this last night on what this is. Where do you see our place in this industry?
Well, and it goes back to that access point, right? My biggest thing is we want people to be comfortable working out. We want them to be active. And ultimately the goal is not, I may get in trouble for saying this, not worrying about the population of evangelists that love working out. We all love doing this. It's about that next 5%. How do we get them involved? You don't get them involved by forcing them in one direction. You get them involved by letting them have options and feeling comfortable. And the only way people who don't trust this industry, not from the consumer protection perspective, but from the, I don't know if it's for me to work out, I feel intimidated, that gym intimidation feeling, the only way we get past that is by giving people safe, comfortable places to get physically active where they like the feeling of it. And I think the studio community provides that. And so that's on the consumer side, but on the advocacy side, I can't stress enough how important it is to have the smaller or community representation that the boutique studio industry brings to the conversation. If I bring a Fortune 500 CEO in to talk to somebody, sure, it's powerful and they want to have the conversation, but then we can't really say like, hey, we're struggling over here. But if you bring in, the individual who's opening her first or second yoga studio, that's first or second Pilates studio, that the tariffs are impacting the cost of reformers. Now all of a sudden it's real life, it's tangible, and they can picture that door on Main Street in their hometown.
Absolutely.
And that is what's crucial. And that's the story that we need you coming to Washington, D.C., coming to our state capitals and sharing. I do want to make a plug. We are going to be doing our first lobby day in Sacramento this year.
I didn't know that.
So that will be May 19th, I believe. I'll get the information because we would love to have the studio voices join us, not only in Washington, D.C., but if you're local here to California, come meet with your California lawmakers as well.
And this is critical. As someone who's lobbied in California and dealt with this over the last few years, you know that there have been a lot of legislation that really pushed up against what felt comfortable as a small business owner. And we've heard this in, unfortunately, California more than probably any other state that we've worked in. I'm so glad you're starting here. I mean, this is the epicenter of boutique fitness in many ways. More boutique fitness studios sit in this state than any other state cumulatively at this point. This is really a chance for you to make an impact and to not show up to your legislators after
Right.
They've made a decision. You want to put you said this before, it's your job to put the input in first. That's everybody's job on this, is to show up with that input.
I don't know who to give the credit to, but what famous line is, the worst time to try and make a friend is when you need a friend. And that is exactly what it is. We need to be building these relationships today so that when we need them tomorrow, we have them.
I love it. Mike, thank you so much for coming and sharing on all of this. I know it's a busy day. Guys, we're at the Health and Fitness Association show. If you don't get to make it here this year, next year, where are we going to be?
Next year, we will be back in Las Vegas.
Oh, y'all. Literally one of the most epic moments in the world. I so appreciate this. To everyone who's been watching us, you're going to definitely be able to learn more about the Health and Fitness Association, how much we love it, all of our work with it, in any of the links below to this. Thank you guys so much. If you've been listening to this, please share this with a fellow studio owner. If you've been watching this, once again, share away. We want to make sure the message of what's possible for our industry is out there completely. Y'all have a great day.